Welcome to Globetrotting with Links. I am your host, and I guess I should get the name out of the way right away from the start. I'm a science fiction fan. I was honored with a fictional peerage by a group I used to run, and that peerage was Links. Now I tend to use it in fandom circles, but also as a nickname as I really like it, and it goes well with my new image from a few years ago. For this second episode, I picked something fun. I recently sailed on Royal Caribbean's Odyssey of the Seas on an Eastern Mediterranean itinerary, and this episode will describe the ship and that itinerary. So the Odyssey of the Seas is a Quantum-class ship. Specifically, she's a Quantum Ultra-class ship, which is a subclass of the Quantum class, which is owned and operated by Royal Caribbean. She's the last of the Quantum Ultra-class ordered by Royal Caribbean and was launched in November of 2020. Her christening was a year later, and she entered into service at the end of 2021, and she has a maximum occupancy of 5,510, and she was originally ported in Port Everglades. She has a crew of 1,612 from all over the world, and a total of 2,105 staterooms configured for double occupancy. Bahamian Paralympian Erin Brown christened her and is the ship's godmother. She's also the first Royal Caribbean ship to include the big text on her hull, something which was continued with Icon of the Seas and Star of the Seas. As you can see here, her staterooms are roomy and very comfortable. This is a deluxe balcony cabin on board, and she has not only comfortable seating areas, but also good storage, something that I've found generally lacking on a lot of cruise ships. The Quantum ships were the first with the North Star experience, and the first ships to feature the bionic bar. Additionally, they were the first with the iFly experience, which is virtual skydiving, and the Seaplex area, which has many fun activities, including bumper cars at sea, various sports, and ice skating. The bionic bar is one of the coolest things at sea. 2 different robots can serve up to 3 drinks each. You select the drink from a menu, and then you send it to the robot arms to make. They gather the ingredients, mix, and pour the drink for you, which is then delivered on a conveyor-style system. It's fun to watch, and also just a great way to have a drink. Unlike the lounges, this is basically a true bar with limited seating and only a few tables. The North Star is probably one of the coolest things on the Quantum-class ships in general. It is, for all intents and purposes, a giant observation ball or a hamster ball made of glass on an arm that takes you up over 300 feet above sea level and lets you look out over the horizon and see the ship from the sides as it moves back and forth over the ship. The views are breathtaking, and assuming that you're not afraid of heights, it is absolutely well worth it to do at least once. Other venues on board include Schooner's Lounge. This is my favorite lounge on any Royal Caribbean ship and is their signature bar. It takes its inspiration from the classic Age of Sail, and while the decoration varies little from ship to ship, it's always nautically themed, with rigging ropes, sometimes stylized whale heads, skeletons as light fixtures, and charts, compasses, nautical artwork adorning the walls. It's usually also the ship's piano bar, and part of the script for this episode was written in the schooners on Odyssey of the Seas. For a more contemporary, Art Deco feel, Boleros is your lounge of choice. The furniture and decor are all reminiscent of the 1920s and early 1930s. This was the era of true ocean liners, and you really get that feeling sitting in Boleros. As everywhere else on board, the drinks are good, and you can usually find some activities going on, from art shows to trivia to live music. It also has a small dance floor. The Sunshine Bar is a simple bar. It's located up in the solarium. It's right next to the bistro, and the solarium, pool, and whirlpool tends to lean a little bit more toward healthy drinks, but you can still get most of your standard drinks there if you're looking for them. The Lime and the Coconut is the bar on the pool deck. It features tropical drinks and is always good for when you want to relax by the pools, as they're on the same deck. This is also where you'll find music in the form of bands and the pool games led by the entertainment crew. Crown and Compass Pub has the look and feel of a traditional English pub, serves both drinks and food. You can get some traditional English pub food on board, as well as enjoy a good lager. The atmosphere is always vibrant, and some evenings they have quizzes and music. Another really unique venue on board is Wonderland. This venue is inspired by the children's story of Alice in Wonderland, but don't let that fool you. It is still a good place for both kids and adults. They try to make every meal filled with some form of magic, so you have dishes where you add something to melt away a covering, or other things like drinks that change color. It really is magic at sea. Including Wonderland and the main dining room, there are a total of 12 different food venues on board the Odyssey of the Seas. So there's no reason why you should go hungry at all, and there is absolutely no reason why you can't find something that suits your palate. As I mentioned, this particular cruise sailed in the Eastern Mediterranean with stops in Santorini, Greece, Kusadasi, Turkey, Mykonos, Greece, and then Naples, Italy, although we took an excursion to Pompeii for the last one. Santorini is a fun island and a beautiful one. It is the largest of 5 islands in the Santorini caldera and is one of only 2 inhabited islands in the group. A caldera, for those of you who don't know, is a type of sinkhole that occurs when a volcano has a rapid emptying of its magma chamber. Often because of how they look, they're called craters, even though this is incorrect. Another very famous example is the Ngorongoro caldera in Tanzania. What makes the Santorini caldera so interesting is that it's still an active volcano. The island experienced a large earthquake in 1956, which destroyed many of the buildings on the island. In February of 2025, the island experienced what is known as an earthquake swarm. Over 200 tremors occurred, some as high as magnitude 5. Approximately 2 million tourists visit Santorini annually, and it is easy to see why. Every single photo you take is like a postcard, especially in the main city of Aya. Here you see the white buildings where some have the blue roofs on the slopes, and no matter which way you look, you can see these, and every picture comes out postcard perfect. The shops here are a combination of some tourist traps and high-end stores, with both clothing and jewelry stores making up the majority. There are plenty of restaurants, all of which serve Greek and Mediterranean fare, and most have both an outdoor and an indoor seating. Another fun thing in this area are the cave houses, which are houses that are built directly into the side of the mountain, where they use the existing caves as a base. There's also an airport on the island, and of course, the port, which is accessible by either taxi, bus, or cable car. You can do a donkey ride up from the harbor if you wish as well. The port's not that deep, so almost all the cruise ships will be anchoring off port, and you're going to be tendering in. The island was featured in the movie The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants and its sequel, and if you play video games, you might recognize it from Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where the Temple of Thera is the entrance to Atlantis. There is some speculation, for those who try to prove the Bible true, that the volcanic eruptions in 1600 BCE might have been the cause of the parting of the Red Sea in the story of Exodus. However, the evidence for this is dubious at best. Next up was the port of Kusadasi, where we went on an excursion to Ephesus before coming back and walking around the port area of Kusadasi itself. Kusadasi is a town, dates from about 3000 BCE. By the 9th century BCE, the Ionians had taken over, and it was during this time, around the 10th century, that Ephesus was built. Although there has been a settlement on the site of Ephesus since the Neolithic Age. Ephesus was the main site for the goddess Artemis. Her temple at Ephesus was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. And the temple fell into ruin about 401 CE, and today you can only see parts of the foundation and fragments of the temple. Electrum, which is a naturally occurring alloy of gold, silver, and copper, is found in the area, and many of the coins from Ephesus which have been found were made of it. During the Peloponnesian War, the city first sided with Athens and then later with Sparta. In 334 BCE, the city came under the rule of Alexander the Great, as did most of Greece, which it remained part of until the Ottoman Empire. By 292 BCE, the river Cayster was silting up, which forced the city to move to its present site, which is where the Temple of Artemis was located, as it had originally been located outside the previous city. The city was then part of the Seleucid Empire until it was conquered by Ptolemy III and became part of the Egyptian Empire. Both Mark Antony and Cleopatra spent time in Ephesus in 33 BCE while he was in conflict with Octavius before the Battle of Actium, which they lost. This helped propel Octavius to become the first emperor of Rome, known then as Augustus, and he made Ephesus the capital of what was known as proconsular Asia. It became the second largest city of the Roman Empire with a population upwards of 225,000 people. The city was sacked by the Goths in 263 CE and rebuilt by Constantine the Great. It then fell to the Seljuk Turks in 1090 CE, and from that point onward was part of the Seljuk Empire and later the Ottoman Empire before becoming part of Turkey. 7 kilometers from Ephesus is the house of the Virgin Mary, where, according to Ephesianus of Salamis, writing in the 4th century, Mary of Nazarene spent the last years of her life. The church, named after her, was the setting for the Third Ecumenical Council, which was held in 431 CE, which confirmed the Nicene Creed, which elevated Christ to divine status, and condemned the teachings of Nestorius, who was the Patriarch of Constantinople, who claimed that Mary was just the Christ-bearer as opposed to the God-bearer. Yeah, religion is so weird. Kusadasi is a town that grew up from the remains of Ephesus. It took over much of the industry, which moved further and further from Ephesus and became a modern city for the times. In the 19th century, due to the Izmir-Selçuk-Aydın Railroad, the city was bypassed, and so it faced another decline. It has become a major tourist destination, both for Turks and others, especially as the cruise industry uses this as a port of call, mainly for Ephesus. Its beaches and castles are a tourist attraction, as is the port area, which has multiple shops and restaurants. The city normally has a population of about 130,000, but this number reaches close to 500,000 when you factor in tourists. It's the home of the Kusadasi Youth Festival, which is one of the most popular music festivals in Turkey. The shopping district near the port is home to many interesting shops, and likely if you do an excursion, you're going to be shown one of the rug stores. Turkey is known for its silk rugs, and you can have the opportunity to see how they're made, and, should you wish, even purchase one. Just a warning, the pressure is fairly high, so be ready for that. However, one of the really cool things is that the Turkish government considers rug making part of their heritage, and since it's a slowly dying art, the government pays for all the taxes and the cost of shipping their rugs to any country you wish. There are plenty of other stores as well, including leather stores, places to buy watches, and my favorite stores, which advertise, quote, genuine fake handbags and, quote, genuine fake Rolex. I mean, at least they're honest in their dishonesty? The third stop on the cruise was Mykonos. From there, we took a tour boat to the island of Delos. This island is a major archaeological site, which was inhabited as early as the 3rd millennium BCE. It was the cultural center for the god Dionysus and the goddess Leto, who was the mother of Apollo and Artemis. During the Peloponnesian War, the island was purified, which meant all the buried dead were removed and further burials were denied to keep the island pure. The island maintained its status throughout the Greek and Roman periods as a major religious outpost and also as a playground for the wealthy. As our guide put it, think of if the Vatican City and Beverly Hills had a child. Delos is that child. It was also a major trade outpost, partially because the island doesn't grow anything due to the soil and the winds, so it had to import everything. This made it a natural trading post where merchants could bring fine goods, which they could then trade or sell to others. During the Roman period, it became a center for the slave trade after the Third Macedonian War. After the destruction of Corinth in 146 BCE, Delos took over the trade routes and became the main trading center for the region. As a result of the Mithratic Wars, Delos was replaced by Puteoli as the major trading center and began a slow decline. As a city and trading post, Delos remained until the 8th century CE, and that's pretty much when it was abandoned. The site has been about 10% excavated, and there are many amazing finds there. Some of the items are reproductions as the originals have been removed for their safety and to prevent further erosion, and are now in various museums, either in Delos itself, or in Mykonos, or in Athens. The Terrace of the Lions is one of the sites where you can see a mixture of actual pieces and reproductions together. Only 7 of the lions in this terrace are original. These lead to the Temple of Apollo, which was the major temple in the later history of the island. Another beautiful area is the House of Dionysus, which has an amazing mosaic floor. This is a reproduction, and the original is in the Delos Museum, which is in Mykonos. So what about Mykonos? Mykonos remained under the Roman control until it was captured by the Byzantine Empire. In 1390, it was given to the Venetians, who ruled it until the Ottomans took it over in 1718. And today, Mykonos is mainly a tourist attraction. It's known as the Island of the Winds because of the strong winds most of the year. This is one of the reasons why the island is known for its windmills. The island feels kind of like Santorini if Santorini didn't have cliffs. It's very pleasant, and the port is nice to walk around, and you can get a good lunch or coffee in the lovely restaurants and cafes in the area. So our final stop before returning to the port of Civitavecchia was Naples. Here we got off and boarded a bus for Pompeii. I knew going into this trip that they had excavated more of the city than when I was last there in 2016, so I was not surprised at all to see new parts of Pompeii. What I was surprised over was just how much they had accomplished. As I mentioned earlier, we went to Delos, which is about 10% excavated. I don't have the exact number, but I believe they're up to close to 45% of Pompeii now. We began outside along the Colosseum, along the outside wall of the Colosseum, and we got to see the magnificent architecture there. The different layers are clearly visible as we walked past, and scaffolding was up where they're still clearing up debris and doing additional excavations. We entered through one of the gates into what was a stable for the gladiators. Here, too, the excavation had been well done, and the various cells that they inhabited were cleared, and we learned that an affluent woman had come down to die in front of one of the cells. Nobody knows if the gladiator in that cell was her favorite, or she was his lover, or the reason that she opted to die there. But her jewelry, which was found, gave away her status. We continued on to the new amphitheater that they had excavated and got to see the seating and how the plebs sat versus the wealthy, and how it was segregated by gender unless you were wealthy, in which case your family sat with you. This is one of 2 amphitheaters in Pompeii. Next, we walked down a residential street and got to see all the food shops that they had uncovered, and how these buildings had been built with the store in the front and the living quarters in the back were essentially middle-class houses. We got to see the houses of some of the wealthy families and how they were different in their construction, including the foyers that they had, which were designed to capture and invite in the sunlight. The streets themselves were amazing in their design. They had built crosswalks which were raised above the roads, which tended to flood, and were also pits of feces and other things. Additionally, one road was designated as no carts, which was interesting in that it was specifically a pedestrian way, which meant those in Pompeii understood the value of keeping at least one street free from traffic. Next, we went on to see the baths, which had been fully excavated. These are impressive, and they show us how they kept the water flowing and how they got warm water through the system. The tiles and mosaics in the bathhouse are works of art, as were the sconces and sculptures on the walls. From there, we walked toward the brothel district, where a guide again pointed out some of the interesting graffiti along the way. In this case, many of them are male phallic symbols, although in this case, they were also a street marker and directional indicator on how to get to the brothel district. We ended up in the square where they had been busy excavating yet more buildings, and this time there were new mosaics and additional columns to see, as well as the main administrative building. It was an incredible experience to see Pompeii again, and I highly recommend it. So, what of the history and archaeology of the city? It's important to note that Pompeii is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, as it is, quote, the only archaeological site in the world that provides a complete picture of an ancient Roman city. Founded as Pompeii in 79 CE, the Roman town was built on the foundations of earlier Greek settlements. The area had been inhabited since the 8th century BCE, and the Greek city dated from about 450 BCE, after the Battle of Cumae. Parts of the earlier civilization are still there, including the Etruscan Temple of Apollo and the Greek Doric Temple. The Samnites conquered the area after the Greeks and were the precursors to the Romans. They were allied with the Romans, though, so this led to having some protection during the Punic Wars. In 89 BCE, however, Pompey rebelled, and it was conquered by General Lucius Sulla and was assimilated into Rome. Pompey served as a trading post for Rome, and many of the goods from both Spain and northwestern Africa arrived here. As a result, it became a cosmopolitan city, and many wealthy businessmen moved there. Under Augustus, building projects were initiated throughout the Roman Empire. This included the Sanctuary of Augustus and the Mausoleum, which were built during this period. During this period, also, earthquakes were a common occurrence in the area, with a severe one occurring in 62 CE that measured probably somewhere between 5 to 6 on the Richter scale. After this, a period of rebuilding began, which lasted until Volcano Day. Volcano Day was actually 2 days, and in our calendar would have been October 24th and 25th, 79 CE. The eruption likely began around 1 p.m., and it lasted until the following day. Pliny the Younger is the only survivor who wrote a testimony, but he was 29 kilometers away in Mycenium at the time and didn't actually witness the eruption firsthand. During the first few hours, rescues and escapes continued by those who were able to. By the evening, the pyroclastic flows had begun, and the ash had covered the area. These suffocated or incinerated the remaining population. Earthquakes, as a result of the eruption, collapsed some of the buildings and caused a tsunami in the Bay of Naples. The initial eruption shot volcanic debris between 15 and 30 kilometers into the sky and lasted up to 20 hours. This cloud blotted out the sun underneath it and dimmed it elsewhere, such as Mycenium, where Pliny the Younger was. His journal records the following for the evening and into the second day. Quote, "Broad flames shone out in several places from Mount Vesuvius, which the darkness of the night contributed to render still brighter and clearer. It was now day everywhere else, but there was a deep darkness prevailed than the thickest night." The following pyroclastic surges covered the area in about 1.8 meter deep layer, which burned and asphyxiated anyone who remained. In the subsequent surges, Pompeii, as well as Herculaneum and Oplontis, were buried in up to 20 meters of pulverized pumice and lava fragments. Emperor Titus Caesar Vespianus organized a relief effort, but little was accomplished. Shortly after things calmed down, those who survived came back to try to salvage what they could. A small settlement was built up in the area until the 4th century CE, but additional eruptions in 471 and 512 covered those up as well. The city of La Civita eventually grew up in the area. Then, in 1592, during the building of an underground aqueduct, the walls of an ancient city were discovered. This was the first excavation of Pompeii, and it was kept secret. In 1689, an inscription was found on the wall, but it was misinterpreted. The inscription, Decurion Pompeius, which means the town councillor of Pompeii, was instead thought to be a reference to the Villa Pompeii, Pompey. In 1693, more walls were excavated, and it was realized that Pompeii was in fact beneath La Civita. Additional excavations in the area in 1738 discovered Herculaneum, and during the digging for foundations for a palace for Charles of Bourbon, who was the king of Naples. His interest drove additional excavations, and on the 20th of August, 1763, an inscription was found, Republica Pompeianorum, the Republic of Pompeii. The city, lost to time, thanks to Mount Vesuvius, had been found. Over the next 100 years, massive excavations took place at Pompeii. Many treasures were found, especially marble and marble statues, many of which were removed and now litter the palaces of Europe. In 1863, Giuseppe Forelli Fiorelli, sorry, a true archaeologist, took over the excavations. Until this time, previous excavators had been confused by voids they had found. Fiorelli figured out that these voids were human-sized and were the imprints of victims. He began injecting plaster to preserve these victims. Today, due to how brittle plaster can be, a clear resin is used instead. Fiorelli also divided the city into 9 regiones with insulae or blocks and began numbering the domus or houses. From 2021 through June of 2024, excavations continued, and everything from 4-wheeled chariots to a bridal carriage to a dining hall and a shrine have been uncovered. In 2021, the tomb of Marcus Verenius Secundio, a freed slave, was found. His mummified remains were found outside the Porto Sarno gate, and the inscription confirmed that he was a custodian of the Temple of Venus and a priest of the imperial cult Soldades Augustales. In total, 27 distinct buildings have been excavated in that area. It's also worth considering that Mount Vesuvius is still an active volcano and has erupted twice in the 20th century, once in 1906 and once in 1944. Currently, it's classified as a green alert level, although plans are in place to evacuate the population should an eruption warning be given. It is hoped that with monitoring systems in place, at least 20 days warning can be given. The area attracts about 2.6 million tourists a year, although as of 2024, the site is limited to 20,000 tickets per day to help preserve the site for the future. In 2016, Pink Floyd guitarist David Gilmour held a concert in one of the amphitheaters. This was the first with an audience in Pompeii since 76 CE. Naples, which is the neighboring city, is the third largest city in Italy and also a region in Italy. The area has been inhabited since the first millennium BCE and is one of the oldest continuously inhabited areas in the world. Thanks to the Palace of Caserta and both Pompeii and Herculaneum, which are nearby, the core of the city is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Per the BBC, it is, quote, the Italian city with too much history to handle. Some amazing things to see in Naples include the Piazza del Plebiscito, which is next to the Royal Palace. Both of these are amazing architecturally and worth checking out. On the other side of the square is the San Carlo Theater, which is the oldest opera house in Europe, and definitely worth a visit to see its Bourbon architecture. Naples is also famous for its underground catacombs, and these have been sites dating back 2,400 years. You can navigate the caverns and cisterns underneath the city as you explore the rich history in the area. The Metropolitan Cathedral of Santa Maria Assunta is another great visit, and you can see the evolution of Gothic style to the more neo-Gothic of later centuries here. No stop in Naples is complete without seeing the Macizo Antionio, which is a castle that dates back to the medieval period, but it was used throughout the Renaissance as well. It's the official symbol of the city and is found on most tourist items. The most important thing to do in Naples, however, is to make sure you get yourself a pizza. Naples is famous for their Napolitano pizzas, and there are many good restaurants for this, and also street vendors serving pizza a portafoglio, which is literally wallet pizza, and also folded pizza. Naples is one of those cities where if you plan your visit right, 2 or 3 days is a good time to see the important sites and still feel like you've accomplished something. And it's a beautiful city. Well worth the visit. So this brings us to the end of the episode. I do hope that you've enjoyed this chance to learn about the Odyssey of the Seas and her Eastern Mediterranean itinerary. I also hope that you enjoy these companion YouTube videos to our podcast series. You can find a link to that in the description. For a fun keepsake of your own, visit thecruiseglobe.com where you can get maps and cruise cards to remember any amazing cruises you may have done. These are fun, and like I said, they're an amazing little keepsake, and you've seen the cruise card for this particular cruise now twice in this episode. And remember, if you want some help making your own travel dreams come true, feel free to email me at martin.lessum@fora.travel. You can also find a link to my Fora profile, as well as a link to the Globetrotting with Links booking site, where I can help you book some of your own amazing cruises and travels. down in the description for this video. Until next time, please keep having amazing adventures, amazing travels, enjoy your own globetrotting. This is Lynx saying travel safe and have fun.